Okay. Gridiron 360, Dave and Bill. We're talking free agency in the AFC, and we're rounding out the AFC East with the New England Patriots. Currently, New England sits at number 23 in this year's 2020 NFL Draft. They are number 18, if that scribble is correct, in terms of salary cap. 18 out of 32 teams. They have $35 million. Let's roll through some free agents. Obviously, the big one, Mr. Tom Brady, got the news this morning that he probably is not going to be a New England Patriot anymore. Some things that have happened. Departures. Kyle Van Noy, we mentioned, inside linebacker, 29 years old, has been picked up by the Miami Dolphins, so he's no longer with the Patriots. And outside linebacker, 30 years old, Jamie Collins, is now gone from the New England Patriots on to former defensive coordinator and now head coach in Matt Patricia at the Detroit Lions, okay? So outside of that, we talked Tom Brady as a free agent. Other free agents of note, wide receiver Philip Dorsett, free safety Nate Ebner, Danny Shelton, defensive tackle, Nick Folk, their kicker, Marshall Newhouse, their right tackle, tight end Ben Watson, Shalik Calhoun, outside linebacker, centers James Ferentz and Ted Karras, Landon Roberts, outside linebacker, and Keonta Davis, defensive end. So the positions of note that we've marked for New England in free agency and or the draft, obviously, first and foremost, quarterback. We also have wide receiver. Had a lot of wide receiver troubles last season. Drafted N'Keal Harry out of Arizona State, who was banged up most of the season and then started coming at the end of the season. By that time, it was too late. Obviously, they had Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon was there for a minute, now gone. He's in Seattle, free agent there. We don't know.
Antonio Brown's coming back.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. It won't matter now because his buddy apparently is not going to be there in TB12. And Philip Dorsett has probably been the only receiver there that has probably the most veteran of the receiver groups in New England, and he is a free agent, so we don't know what's going to happen there. So we say quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. Always been a position. What?
Panthers to sign Bridgewater. Just a side note.
Oh, okay. Tight end, always a position that they were able to lean on with Gronkowski. Obviously, Gronkowski no longer being there. I think that it showed last year. It was really a position that they were lacking. They bought old man Ben Watson in. Dude's 39. He's a free agent. I don't even know if they'll re-sign him.
No, I think, was he the one? He's the one that's said he's retired.
Well, he should be, and especially if Brady's not there. I mean, that's the draw for a guy like that at that age. Is, he's played with him. You know what you're going to get. We also have defensive end on the docket for them, and we also have O-linemen. To be honest with you, and this is probably the first time in God knows forever, this is like a complete rebuild for this team because losing Jamie, we said, we don't have linebacker on there, but they lost their two linebackers in Van Noy and Jamie Collins. So that now becomes a position of need for them. So they have a rebuild pretty much all over the board in my mind. Again, I mentioned Ted Karras and James Ferentz are free agent. Those are both centers. So they got needs, man. They got needs.
So have you talked about where they're going to go at quarterback since I missed the first?
No, I just ran through the numbers and went through it. We know that TB12 has said he's no longer going to be there. So and then you obviously just brought that the Panthers Teddy Bridgewater deal could be for real, and that might happen.
Yep.
So he's not an option for them.
Yeah,
they're number 23 in the draft. So
they're flush with picks, but they are throughout the rounds.
A lot of those are compensatory picks, so it's not.
So early. They got like third, fourth, and fifth rounds.
Middling to later. So we had said before, maybe they try to go for a diamond in the rough quarterback, a la Tom Brady, but they're not going to get a shot at one of the big name quarterbacks that everybody thinks.
A lot of talk right now is the idea. You think about two guys out there on the trade market.
They won't trade
the
up.
Trade market would be like an Andy Dalton, a guy that that can start. In some ways with Andy Dalton, I want to give the guy a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Remember that he was under Marvin Lewis for most of his career, who was a piss-poor version of Lovie Smith. And when we talk about Lovie Smith, Lovie Smith was a defensive guy, put together great defenses, but he only went to the playoffs 3 of 9 years. So that's not a really good step up. So and under Belichick, I think that guy gets a little bit more protection. But again, that's assuming they go that route. But here's where Belichick's getting what he kind of, I think, wanted. He gets a chance to say, look, I was a great coach and GM, and I'm a great coach and GM without him. But I also
without Brady,
but the problem is the thing he's going to run into is he's going to be under a lot of pressure to fix it quickly, and I think that would be unfair. But I do think the Patriots are going to give him the room to do it and the time, and we're going to see what a rebuild looks like in New England, which we haven't seen for 2 decades.
Yep. Now, also keep in mind they have Mohamed Sanu they brought over from the Falcons in the receiving corps. I thought we'd see a little more of him last year. Not so much.
Did not pan out the way it
I
looked.
said Nick Folk is a free agent, their kicker. Now keep in mind, Steven Gostkowski was hurt. So, if Gostkowski's okay, Folk is probably gone. I mentioned the tight end Ben Watson. Their tight end room still has got some depth. They got Matt Lacoste, Ryan Izzo, and Jacob Johnson there. Quarterback room, they've got Jared Stidham, who they drafted last year, and they've got Cody Kessler. So I still think, maybe they do go to a place like Dalton and still try to groom somebody like Stidham to eventually take over there.
Yeah, listen, I will never count the Patriots out, but we have to be realistic about what they're looking at. And remember, they're not sitting on a lot of cap space. It's not like they're sitting up at the 50 mil plus. They're only at 35 million. And, these free agents have all walked on them. But what New England has always been is creative and creative in the cap world. Because, while Brady was never demanding top tier money, he was getting high dollar. Like he was in the top 10 quarterbacks. He slid down at times between his contracts to 11 or 12. You're going to have to revamp this, and it's just going to be really interesting to see. I mean, they've got to kind of go everywhere right now. And so I think it's just going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we have wide receiver up there, and I'm starting to look at the depth chart. We talked Philip Dorsett. I just mentioned they brought in Sanu. N'Keal Harry, they drafted last year. They've still got Julian Edelman. They have Jacoby Myers, who they drafted last year at NC State. I forgot about him. I like him. I think he's actually someone they could lean on and develop more. I think he's a good receiver. So in saying all that, they could draft a receiver in this class, but maybe they try and go pick someone up. There's not a lot of flash out there at the wide receiver position in free agency to be desired. So I don't know. Maybe they do something like go pick up Devin Funchess and drop him back into that tight end position.
Yeah, I get.
Wasn't he playing that in Carolina?
Yeah, I mean
a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely a heavy, slower-footed receiver. So yeah,
but
you could go that route. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. Again, they're not going to look like what they've looked at in the past. I mean, you think about it. Last year, their attempt was to continue to re-up their defense. Their defense in the first half of the year was otherworldly. They were just, in the sense of what they were putting up. I think right now, I think at this point it's just going to be a different look, and we're not sure what that look is. But you got that guy Belichick, and I think Belichick and Brady both needed each other. I think there's a lot of value. I think they would not have been as great as they both were without the other, but at the same time, they both would have been great.
Yeah,
I think so. So now the question is, what does Belichick look like without having to worry about? I mean, you look at it right now. There's probably 20 teams in the NFL that are worried at quarterback. Legitimately worried at quarterback. Their quarterback, they're not sure their guy is the answer, or they know their guy is not the answer, and they're not sure what the next answer is. That's 2/3 of the league. So now New England finally falls into that category, and it's been that way forever. I mean, when has it not been that way? I mean, maybe you go back to when Phil Simms and Jim McMahon guys could rely on the Walter Paytons, the Joe Morrises, the Mark Bavaros, these stud just beasts out there. It's just not that way anymore.
Well, you look at you bring up a good point because, look, Belichick was the defensive coordinator for my New York Giants under Bill Parcells, so he's the defensive-minded guy. Their defense right now in the secondary, they've got the McCourty McCourty boys, Patrick Chung, Stephon Gilmore. So that's kind of shored up pretty good, at least for the starting line. They still got Donta Hightower at linebacker, but they lost Van Noy and Jamie Collins. They have a guy that they draft. They have John Simon at DN. They also have a guy in Chase Winovich listed as a DN that they drafted out of Michigan, where he played linebacker.
Right.
Danny Shelton is their starting D tackle, who's a free agent. I got to imagine after losing those other pieces on D, they tried to bring Shelton back. They already tagged Joe Tooney. Philip Dorsett might be somebody they try to bring back on the cheap. I mean, I can't imagine he's going to command that much money in free agency. And when I'm looking through this list, he is, in terms of the top 100 guys as they list them, for free agencies, Philip Dorsett is like 71 out of 100. All free agents. Now that can be a biased opinion, but
let's say this though. But let's be realistic about New England. This is one thing. For years now, teams have been trying to fleece the Patriots and have lost. But why that's still important is people want the Patriots way in their locker room. And so their players usually tend to be an overreach by the team, but tend to be coveted because of that experience on a team like that. And the question is, do even their players now who we'd say, oh, they could bring back, now become, because you can't just say like, well, I'm going to go play with Tom Brady because I can go win a championship.
Right.
You're not going to have that attractiveness like that Antonio Brown had, that Randy Moss had in that career. You're not don't have that attractiveness. So do teams start to pick away at them just to pick away at them?
Yeah,
that
true.
could be interesting. That's kind of going to be a weird scenario.
Now, I did mention the two centers, Karras and Ferentz, that were up in free agency. Let me make sure I clarify. Neither of them are starting centers. Their starting center is David Andrews.
Yep.
Okay? So I want to make sure. They also at right guard still have Shaq Mason, who's very good. They left guard Joe Tooney. They tagged him. Left tackle Isaiah Wynn, young guy, University of Georgia, real good. They still have him. And then they have Marcus Cannon at the right tackle. Free agent, but also another offensive lineman of note, Marshall Newhouse, if they were to bring him back in. So they've got some pieces on the line, some names, some guys that are good, that have been in that system, and that's worked. I got to imagine in free agency, they're going to try to either re-sign or with what they can bring in guys on the defensive side of the ball right now, other than maybe Andy Dalton. I think if they try to go after Andy Dalton, that may be the only offensive piece they try to go after. Aside from signing guys that are theirs, that are free agents. Outside of that, with what they have, I think they need to spend on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of red there in terms of free agents or guys that are gone, and some of those are names of note. I mean, 4 of them are starters, and 2 gone, Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy, and then again, Danny Shelton and Landon Roberts. I think he's was he on their team? Yeah, he's one of their linebackers. Yep. I'm looking, I can't find. Yeah, so I got to imagine free agency, they're going to lean towards the defensive side of the ball with Mr. Defensive-minded Bill Belichick, just if he has his druthers. Now Belichick's not a guy as a coach that completely owns the makeup of this team, okay? He's not somebody that'll interfere. He definitely is going to give his 2 cents, and I think his 2 cents is taken into consideration by general management and everyone else more than most teams, okay? But he's not one that's, I don't think, so demanding that he's not willing to listen to reason. I still believe that free agency, if they do some moves, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball, but that's just me.
All right, so I think we can wrap up with New England only because there's really not a lot to tell you until because now obviously the big news is out there, but the reaction, there's been nothing to state like, hey, here's next move. But I have a feeling over the next 2 days in particular, we're going to start to see some interesting things.
And we'll
with New England.
update you as such. But, we got to know what's going to happen with that quarterback room. And we just get this breaking news that the Panthers and Bridgewater are working on a 3-year, $20 million deal. So
per year.
So
I would have expected him to get more than that.
Well, and we only bring that up because that takes him out of the running for New England to possibly look at him.
Yeah, and in that, remember, Tampa was a heavy consideration. Obviously, the two big names with them were Brady and Bridgewater as far as, the big name replacements. And with him coming off the market, saw a little inkling that now the Bucs are getting back in close contact with Jameis Winston. So
I was going to say, what if Winston went to New England and Brady went to the Bucs? What if that was the final?
I don't know if I see a Jameis Winston fitting in with a Bill Belichick, but it'd be interesting.
I don't know.
So,
I mean, he's got, his character issues aside, there are points where you do see him and he tries to be a leader.
And mind you, with Bridgewater being out there, let's throw another grenade in there. And I'm not saying it necessarily for New England, but everything's on the table with them right now, I would imagine. You've now got Cam Newton becomes part of the market, which was expected and then not expected and now is expected again. So interesting stuff here.
Yep. So that'll wrap up the New England Patriots in the AFC East. We will move on next to the AFC North.